Hello, YouTube friends. My name is Raisa Giselle, and I am here to talk to you about parenting. I want to talk about how parenting has changed my life. It has shown me a lot of trauma that I've had that I wasn't aware of. Um, I did know I went through some difficulties in childhood, but I wasn't aware of the impact that it caused in my life until I became a parent. Uh, Being a parent has shown me that traumas can be reciprocated to your kids. In one video, I had mentioned that hurt people hurt people. We all know that. Well, most of us know that. I grew up with that saying. I didn't understand the impact of hurt people until I myself became a parent and kind of like saw it head on. Um, with me, I saw it through my child, my oldest, where I was reiterating to her the trauma that was imposed on me. That was probably also imposed to my parents, um, mostly my father, who I was raised with, and my grandmother. My grandmother was amazing growing up. She was like the best caretaker I could have ever asked for. When I was a child, I had told her that I didn't like being yelled at. So I just told her straight on, if you need to tell me something, you can just explain it to me and I will do it. There's no need for the yelling and the fighting. I wasn't very much for all that chaos. And also because even though I had siblings, I was raised as an only child, because I was the only one from my mother and my father. I, well, and then since I was raised with my grandmother, I wasn't being raised with my other siblings. So it was more like an agreement that my grandmother and I had about the yelling, which was amazing for me for honestly my mental health at the time. I think if I would have had the yelling along with the other trauma that I incurred, it would have probably been very detrimental to me. Even though I did grow up very depressive, if you read my diaries and journals growing up, there was a lot of depressive thoughts, um, thoughts of uh, disclosure ahead, disclaimer, thoughts of not wanting to be on this earth anymore, which luckily for me, I did have a relationship with my journal. Um, Writing it out, it actually helped me realize that that wasn't necessarily true. It kind of took me out of what I was going through and it helped me see a different aspect of it, um, which is why I'm still here. I also did have a lot of thoughts of running away as a child. I used to have a suitcase in my closet with, like a just in case suitcase, just in case I was um, willing to finally leave. I would I would have done it. I don't think I, even though I wanted to, deep down in, like, consciously I wanted to, deep down inside, I don't think I wanted to. which is also why I never ran away. Like I said again, my grandmother was involved in my life, which was a very um, great blessing to me, and I wouldn't have wanted to leave her. Um, Also, I didn't want to leave the other people in my life that I loved and cared for. Anyhow, when I saw that my daughter had the same depressive feelings, I started to look inward into how I was being as a parent, because in my mind, I wasn't as bad as, for example, like my cause of my trauma came from my father, who, in his words, would probably be called reprimanding or educating or something like that. Um, when in reality, it was called getting hit a lot as a child, um, very, very forcefully and hurtfully. And in my culture, sometimes it's okay for that to happen. So when I became a parent, my biggest fear was to not become like my father, which, even though I wasn't constantly hurting my child physically, I did notice that I was sometimes verbally hurting my child or emotionally hurting my child, which is not something that I wanted to consciously instill into my kid. It was, even though I would tell myself and tell others I don't want to be like my father, I ultimately became like my father. And I didn't see that until the same depressive symptoms that I had as a child came. And, at first I was like, why would you be so depressed? Like, you have it good, and we can't, I feel like we can't really decide what other people's experiences are, even though we are part of their experience. It's not up to me to tell her how to feel or um, how to take the things that I'm telling her. So it caused me to do a lot of deep dive and soul search within me, to kind of like break out of that box of reiterating the trauma of being a person who was hurt, who was now hurting someone who I love deeply. And this is also another reason why I wanted to make a YouTube channel, because there are a lot of parents out there who are just hurting on the inside, and then they hurt their kids, knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. And I want to let people know that if I can come out of it and if I can become better, you can as well. So, with that said, I would like to implore everyone who is watching or listening to this, to do their own soul searching, to go within themselves and not only acknowledge their own pain, if they have any, or their own trauma, but also see and explore the trauma that they may be inflicting on others. Like I said, sometimes it's knowingly, other times it's unknowingly. And we can all be doing this. It's not just um, people who are parents, which I feel like those who are, they have a better chance to do it because they can see their child as a mirror to them. But then it can also happen with anyone who is close to us. There are a lot of hurt people who are also inflicting pains on animals, or um, just different. I was gonna say babies, which is horrible. It's horrible. It's true. It happens, but and I would love to live in a world where those who are the most vulnerable are free and they're safe and they don't have to grow up and do all this soul searching because they were raised, or um, they were treated, if it's an animal, they were treated with love and kindness. So I do see a lot of videos of like traumatized pets. There's a few people I follow that once I learn how to mess with this StreamYard a little bit better, I'm gonna learn how to plug some stuff in where we can even watch and react to some stuff. But I do follow some people who rescue animals, and it's the most beautiful thing because they have the courage and wisdom and patience to help these poor animals who have been through horrific things through their pain, and get them ready for adoption. So, the same way that it can happen with a pet, it can also happen with a child, who then ends up as an adult to maybe re traumatize someone else. And I'm constantly asking myself, where does it end? Where does the trauma end? I do see a lot of adults, I call them uh, little big people, or big little people, more big little people, who are, they're adults, but a lot of the times they act like children, like hurt kids. And it's because within them they do probably have a hurt kid in them. I've seen it with myself as well, where I'm lashing out, and it's just like my inner child just wants to be hugged and loved and acknowledged, and to know that I am safe and protected. But that it's a difficult thing to do, to acknowledge that, if you're not in a safe environment or if you're not willing to do the work. I constantly tell my friend that, a friend of mine that I have, I was constantly telling her that to me it's more difficult to raise kids as a trauma informed parent than it was when I was just living through my trauma, because at that point I was just doing, what needs to be done, not really caring about the emotional aspect back parts of parenthood. And it's interesting because we are living in a time now where there's no contact within families. Family members are going no contact. A lot of adult children are going no contact with their parents, um, or siblings, or whatever the case may be, their family in general, too. And even though that might not be a new concept, it has probably been going on for a while, but now it's more mainstream. And it was beautiful because I saw, what was beautiful is that I saw a video. I forget which social media it was. If I do find it, I will also try to link it. But it was a mom who was speaking about how, I can't remember if she had like three kids, but either way, she had children, and two of them or so are going no contact with her. And when usually, like my dad, for instance, he gets upset, because um, not just me, but also um, my sibling doesn't really want to have a relationship with him. And he kind of like puts it on us that, oh, they don't call their father, or they don't care about their father. And it's like, I mean, you can go through your memory bank, right, and see why and understand why. So when there are a lot of parents, and I see this not just in my family but in other families, people that I know, where the parent will never admit wrongdoing or admit that they traumatized or hurt their child. This woman, she was explaining why her kids went no contact with her, and she was being very perceptive as to why. And what she said was, I was doing the bare minimum. I thought that was enough. And I get it. Most likely she was a single parent that had a lot put into her plate, and who knows if she had trauma also as a child. But when you have trauma, you just, and I call it living in the matrix, you're just going through the motions. You're like, well, my kid has a home, my kid has food. um, I'm not beating them or exploiting them or doing all these horrible things that other parents do, which means it's okay, they're fine, right? But you don't stop to think about, well, maybe I said something to them that was something that was told to me as a child, and that might be hurtful. And just because it was said to me doesn't mean it's okay. So, um, I'm basically just saying that maybe we should all take a little bit of time to look deep within ourselves, acknowledge our pain, and make a decision to stop the hurt, to stop not just our own pain, but other people's pain that we might be inflicting. This was the longest video I've ever made, but this is something that is very close to my heart that I want to kind of like talk about more often, because I feel like this is how we get a lot of stuff that is horrible that's happening in the world to stop, is by educating parents. Um, because and I heard this. I wish I remembered where I heard this, but they were basically saying, vic- only people who were victimized grow up to become victimizers. And if we stop it on the one place that we can, which is within ourselves, with ourselves, um, being radically responsible for our own actions, we might be able to stop hurting others. Well, this is where I'm leaving off. I hope anyone listening to this will take into account everything I said and do a little bit of soul searching for themselves, see where they might have any trauma or pain or hurt. And after you do that, maybe see where you have hurt or traumatized someone else. Um, well, it was nice to speak to you all, and hopefully, this video might help someone in the future.